You won't believe this. After a devastating hurricane wiped out nearly an entire neighborhood, one man's house was the only one left standing. But instead of thanking him, his neighbors, led by one furious woman, accused him of causing the destruction and demanded $5 million in compensation. This story will leave you shaking your head. My name's Tom Harris, and I live in a small coastal town in Florida. Or at least, I used to. Before everything went crazy, I was just an ordinary guy. I worked as an engineer for a construction firm, loved fishing on weekends, and spent my evenings on my porch watching the sunset over the Gulf. But when Hurricane Celeste tore through our town last year, everything changed. Let me start from the beginning. I built my house with my own hands over 3 years. As an engineer, I designed it to survive anything: hurricanes, floods, even tornadoes. Reinforced concrete walls, hurricane-proof windows, a deep foundation anchored with steel, and a roof designed to resist wind uplift. People laughed when they saw the cost. "Tom, you're overdoing it," my neighbor Linda once told me, laughing. "This isn't a military bunker. It's Florida, not a war zone." I smiled and said, "You'll thank me when the next big storm hits." She rolled her eyes. "If the next storm hits, we'll all be toast. No house can survive that." I didn't argue. I just kept building, quietly confident in my design. Then came Hurricane Celeste. We'd seen big storms before, but nothing like this. Winds of 180 miles an hour. Flooding up to rooftops. Cars flipped like toys. The entire neighborhood evacuated, everyone except me. Not because I was stubborn, but because I knew my house was built for this. I had a reinforced shelter built inside with a backup generator, food, and water. For 3 terrifying days, the storm battered everything around me. Trees snapped like matchsticks, power lines fell, and debris flew everywhere. When it was finally over, I stepped outside, and my heart sank. Everywhere I looked, devastation. Houses flattened. Streets flooded. Power poles torn from the ground. But mine, still standing. Not a crack, not a leak. The windows were intact, the roof untouched. It looked like my house had been dropped in the middle of a disaster movie, the only thing still standing in a sea of destruction. At first, I was grateful. I thanked God for keeping me safe. I offered to help my neighbors when they returned. But what I didn't expect was the jealousy. When the evacuation orders lifted, families came back to see what was left of their homes. The street was filled with tears and shock. People sifted through rubble, searching for memories. And then came the whispers. I was outside handing out water bottles and helping one family pull debris off their car when Linda showed up. Her house, or what was left of it, was just a pile of wood and twisted metal. She stared at mine, spotless and shining in the sunlight, and said in a sharp voice, "How did your house survive?" I said gently, "I designed it to withstand Category 5 storms." "Reinforced concrete, deep foundation," she interrupted. "Oh, please. No house stands like that unless something fishy's going on." I blinked. "Fishy?" She folded her arms. "You must have done something. Maybe changed the airflow, redirected the storm, or who knows what. My insurance guy says it's impossible." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Linda, it's called engineering." But she wasn't smiling. Within a week, the rumors spread like wildfire. Some said my house blocked the storm, redirecting the winds that destroyed theirs. Others claimed I had installed a legal weather tech that caused the wind to shift. It sounded insane, but the angrier people got, the more they believed it. At the next temporary HOA meeting, Linda stood up in front of everyone and said, "This man's house stood untouched while ours were destroyed. And because of that, insurance companies are denying our claims. They say his house interfered with natural wind flow." People gasped. Some even nodded. Then she said it, "He owes us. Every one of us. For the damage his bunker caused." I couldn't believe my ears. "Linda," I said, standing up, "you're blaming me for a hurricane? That's insane." She jabbed her finger in my direction. Then explain how every other house got blown to pieces except yours. You must have done something, and we'll prove it. A man in the back shouted, he probably rigged it with some kind of shield. Another added, or he changed the airflow with those weird vents on the roof. I wanted to laugh, but when I looked around, I saw people nodding. People who'd lost everything. People desperate for someone to blame. And in their eyes, I was that someone. A week later, I got a legal notice delivered to my door. Linda and 8 other homeowners had filed a civil lawsuit demanding $5 million in damages, claiming my unusual home design had caused unnatural storm damage patterns. Yes, you heard that right. They were suing me for surviving a hurricane. I called my lawyer immediately. He thought it was a prank. Tom, he said, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But we can't ignore it. You have to respond. And so began the strangest court battle of my life. At the first hearing, Linda's lawyer tried to sound scientific. He showed diagrams of my house and said, the defendant's reinforced structure created a wind tunnel effect that intensified the storm's power on surrounding homes. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have any expert testimony to support that? Linda's lawyer proudly said, yes, Your Honor, a local weather enthusiast named Gary. They brought out this guy wearing a t-shirt that said Storm Chaser 69 and let him ramble about air pressure vortices. The courtroom was struggling not to laugh. Then my lawyer stood up, cleared his throat, and said, Your Honor, my client is a licensed structural engineer. His home was built within all local codes and inspected by the state. There's no such thing as redirecting a hurricane. He presented wind data from NOAA and satellite images proving the storm's path had nothing to do with my property. The judge looked unimpressed with Linda's side. So you're suggesting, he said slowly, that Mr. Harris's house altered the course of a Category 5 hurricane? Linda stood up and shouted, Yes. It's not fair. We lost everything and he didn't. It's suspicious. The judge sighed. Ma'am, bad luck is not a lawsuit. Case dismissed. Just like that, it was over, or so I thought. Because even after the court threw out the case, the damage to my reputation stuck. Neighbors avoided me. People whispered when I drove by. Someone even spray-painted Hurricane Maker on my fence. It hurt, not because of the words, but because these were people I'd helped. People I'd once shared barbecue with. But I wasn't going to stay quiet. I reached out to a local news station and told them everything. They aired a segment called The Man Who Survived the Storm and got blamed for it. It went viral. Millions watched as reporters showed my house, my engineering plans, and the ridiculous lawsuit. Experts on live TV called the neighbors' claims pure nonsense and praised my home design as a model for future hurricane-resistant housing. Within a week, people's opinions flipped. Messages poured in from engineers, veterans, even school teachers thanking me for showing what smart design could do. And Linda? She went silent. Completely. A month later, FEMA and the State Building Commission visited my home to study the design. They found it so effective that they announced new grants to help homeowners strengthen their houses using similar methods. Reporters asked me if I was angry at my neighbors. I said, no. They were scared, desperate, and looking for someone to blame. I get it. But storms don't pick favorites, they expose weaknesses. That line made headlines. Over time, the town rebuilt. Some neighbors moved away. Others came to apologize. Even Linda eventually showed up one afternoon, standing awkwardly at the edge of my driveway. She said quietly, Tom, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have blamed you. I just lost everything. I looked at her. She looked smaller somehow, tired. I nodded. I understand. But next time, don't destroy someone else just because you're hurting. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and walked away. A year later, my story ended up in Popular Mechanics magazine. The headline read, The Man Whose House Beat the Hurricane. And now, whenever a storm warning comes, people in nearby counties call me for advice on how to make their homes safer. I even started a small business helping others design hurricane-proof houses. And ironically, The first client? Linda's insurance company. Guess they finally realized good engineering saves more than it costs. When life's storms hit, literally or figuratively, people may turn on you out of fear or envy. But if you stand firm, if you stay grounded in truth and integrity, you'll weather any storm that comes your way. Because sometimes the strongest walls aren't made of concrete. They're made of character.